Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
And we're bringing you another one of our live YouTube post-game shows that will be also partly used as our next episode of the podcast, episode 404. But the Disney dream is over. The Whitecaps bowed out, heartbreaking fashion. It's always horrible to lose in the lottery of penalties. It means there's no Canadian teams left in Orlando. We'll delve into all the ins and outs of the game. We don't really have any set schedule for this. We'll just kind of chew the fat, take your questions in the chat, read your comments as well from the chat and on Twitter. But before we get into that, just what was your overall feeling about the match tonight? How did you feel the tactical sense of it went? Were you disappointed that we didn't maybe attack more? Or was this the best game plan that you feel, with what the Whitecaps had, that MDS could have gone for?
I was a little bit surprised. I was a little bit surprised again. I think I mentioned to you guys before game that that Theo was starting up top alone with, basically called it 4-4-1 or whatever, with Inbaum as kind of the 10 attacking midfielder behind him. I was not shocked, but a little bit surprised by that. It also felt like, due to the David Milinkovic injury, that they're unable to either start him or stagger their weapons off the bench the way that they have in other games. So I think starting Dahomey was probably good for them in the end, but I would have thought they would have liked to have had like a Dahomey or Milinkovic later on in the game. So I was a little bit surprised that they didn't put Raposo in that spot and try, because like it seems like in both these games part of their plan was, let's just get to the end and then it's a sprint to the finish or to the penalty spot, and we'll see what we can do. Last game it worked out really well. This game they were down another element of their team, and I think that really, really hurt them, because Inbaum had to play very deep, and even though he had some better attacking moments than he's had all tournament, I don't think it was enough for them, obviously, going forward.
I'm more to the point that I think this is the only option they really had. That, you know, sure, Inbaum playing up top might have been not the best thing. Maybe a Tybert who could have put a little bit more pressure on the Kansas City backline, but I didn't see them even having that as an option of applying pressure, because the fact that I think the whole game they only used one sub. And I did anybody ask about man management to MDS in the post game?
No, it was a strange post game
because there was no options.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing that he could have done is bring Raposo on. I would have done that, because Theo Bair looked pretty dead on his feet in the closing 5-10 minutes, and I maybe just brought Ryan on just to try and give him the ball, run at that defence and see what happened. But we'll come to all of that. I think it's fair to say Kansas City deserved to win. They deserved to go through. They were the better team. And for all we can talk about a battling performance and a gritty performance, if KC had taken the numerous amount of chances that they had, and like Johnny Russell squandered loads, I owe him a few packets of chocolate digestives and some jam for that. But, I mean, they could have been out of sight if they'd taken those chances. Some good saves from Thomas Hasal, some good defending from the guys as well. But I don't think anyone could have come away from that match feeling that the Whitecaps really deserved to win it.
Yeah, they didn't have very many good chances. I think I remember the Ali Adnan, obviously the late free kick that really ruffled Tamilia a little bit. There was a chance Theo Bair had. I can't remember the 40th or 50th minute mark where he looked like he was in a good position and couldn't get a really shot. And actually, I scared my wife because I was watching the game on the thing, and she was watching Sherlock on the TV, and I yelled. It was a tense situation in Sherlock, and I yelled for the bear thing, and it scared her. So she turned off the game and left at that point because she was too freaked out. But overall, I thought it was exactly what they needed to do, and you wish they could have gone a little bit more chances here and there, but really nothing available. Kansas City played a perfect game, even though you wanted them to finish chances for them. But overall, they controlled the game. There's no really channels for Vancouver to get into.
Yeah, there were a couple of promising attacking moments, and including the one you're talking about where Theo Bair did well to create space for a shot, but then the shot itself was a little bit weak. There was a free kick you mentioned I agree with. There's one or two other moments where the buildup was good, but the shooting opportunity wasn't there. The other one that, again, going back to Inbom and him having some flashes of positive offensive contribution, he had the one shot with his left foot from outside the box that I mean, Melia had to make the save. I think it would have at least hit the crossbar. It was one of the brighter moments in the game. But when you're talking about the Whitecaps in this game, and maybe the tournament as a whole, there should be a lot of questions or concerns just about their movement on the field and how they play. They're like the beginning of the game today. The offensive players, and I don't think it was just because of how they were playing defensive and their inability to transition into the offense, but the spacing between the players was just seemed out of whack.
Yeah, inconsistent. A lot of inconsistency in the space. It
wasn't even inconsistent. It was just it was poor. Like, it was such big gaps between players that players had very little option, and so they either tried to force something or they just got closed down. The other thing about that is that goes along with that I think later in the game, it's tired legs, I know, and all that kind of stuff. But their movement away from the ball is something that really, really needs to be worked on, because there's so many times in that game where one or two players are working really hard in the offensive half, let's say, are working really hard to make something happen, and no one is moving. And I know we talked in the past before. Some have said maybe this was last year and whatever, or a different time, or earlier in the year before other things have been done. But there has been talk that MDS, and I know other coaches have done this as well, but MDS talks about wanting to let the players play more freely in the final third, to be creative, to have the ability just to attack in the moment and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's valid in one respect for professional footballers. But when you look at how they've been doing that, even in this tournament and all the circumstances that come with it, I think you can't help but look at it and say there's a lot that needs to be worked on there, and there should be less openness to just the fluidity of what people want to do or where they're at in the moment. And there should be definitely some work being done more on what the runs they want to have and the movement that they want to have, because I think that could have helped them even continue to overachieve in this tournament today had they been a little bit more on in that sense.
And I think there was a couple of times too. There was one particular moment when I remember, not even in the final third, like in the build-up, they were controlling a lot of play on the left-hand side, and then they were switching the ball to the right, where they got it to Jake, and then the thing is they moved the ball over, but the players didn't move over with the ball, and then Jake got the ball and he had nowhere to get it to, so he basically tried to split the two attacking players and lost the ball, and there was just a giveaway at that point. And the prior build-up or the movement of the ball was really good, but it was just that once they got to the other side, he had no outlet to get it to. So you're right, not only in the final third, but other parts of the pitch too, that they got to move with the ball and create options.
I mean, if we look at the stats, I mean, it kind of shows KC's dominance. Possession-wise, KC had 62.5% of the possession. They had 36 shots, but only 8 of them were on target. Of course, none of them went in the back of the net, so there you go. And 22 off target with 6 blocked. The Whitecaps, by comparison, had 8 shots and only 5 of those on target. No off target, but 3 were blocked. But, I mean, to give up that amount of shots is risky in any game. In a knockout game in particular, I think it is. But the defence on the whole looked pretty good. MDS touched on it after the match. That's 180 plus minutes now that the Whitecaps have not given a goal up. So it's after the third goal went in against Seattle. From that moment on, they've not given a goal up in this tournament. So, I mean, that is a positive to take from it. And we saw it in Robbo's years. If you get the defence right, it gives you something to build on. It gives you a base to build on. And then you just need the attacking pieces there. It has felt, though, apart from some small bursts, like the small burst in that Chicago game, the last few minutes tonight, I thought that the Whitecaps did pretty well, but we just don't seem to have that burst. And I know we're missing the likes of Cavallini, Ricketts, guys that would maybe have done that. Do you think it was the right decision to keep Reyna on the bench? First of all, to start with, and then did he come on early enough, or do you think the way that Marc had wanted to play it out, that was like perfect?
I think he should have came on earlier, and I think the player he should have came on earlier for was Theo Bair. I do like the way Theo Bair played, especially holding up play. I think that helped him a lot in the build-up of when they wanted to do it. He had a couple of really good times when he got the ball, stopped it, let everybody come up and get into position. But overall, I thought he would. I think the problem is the reason why they didn't bring him on so early was because they didn't want to take Theo Bair off, and they didn't want to put both of those players, like Reyna with Mbom, and then in that position. So I think that's the reason why he didn't come on earlier. But I would have liked to see him come on at the 60th minute, even the 55th minute. But I guess maybe because they didn't know about injuries too, they didn't know who they were going to take off because they didn't have very many options, so they had to keep their options open at that point too.
To be honest, Steve, I was feeling that actually in the game. I was like, man, they really got to bring Jordy on. They really got to bring Jordy on.
Yeah.
But in the end, I didn't really mind how they did it. It didn't work out for them, obviously, but I didn't mind how they did it because I really think Jordy and Christian kind of had, or Dahomey had some good passes with each other and stuff, and they missed each other a couple of times, but they couldn't pull anything off. But I thought that giving him like whatever those 18 plus 6 minutes, I thought was kind of sufficient enough. I was a little bit worried when I think TSN announced that he was coming on for Bair, and I thought I didn't like that. I think you needed some kind of presence up front. But even though I didn't want Bair to come off, I messaged you guys this or whatever, but I really thought as soon as they brought him on and they left Bair on, it felt like Dahomey was tired and Adnan was a little bit tired, and it felt like they were really going to get caught out in the middle, because when you took out Mbom, who was playing as like a 10 attacking midfielder, but really he was doing a lot of help in the midfield, doing a lot of work.
Advanced state.
Yeah, it really felt like Kansas City was going to be able just to play through the middle really easy, just some give and go, and they did it a few times. Like you saw them attack the middle a little bit with just some give and goes, and a couple guys just said, "I'm just going to play the ball past these tired midfielders and run." Again, it didn't work out for Kansas City, during the 90 minutes. But if I was Peter Vermes, I would have been so happy to see that sub, and how Vancouver sort of aligned after that. I think they won't care because it went through, but I think Peter Vermes will be like, we should have taken more advantage of the space and the numbers that we had in central midfield in Belmont.
I think if the Caps had gone through, Peter Vermes' post-game press conference would have been very interesting. I would love to have known what he said in that. It was interesting, and I kind of touched about this in the extra podcast. This was something that was asked to Peter Vermes in his pre-game press conference, which was, there's no points on the line. Do you guys... I think the exact wording was, I know you're not going to go out and tank a game, but do you guys not just want to maybe get home now? And when I watched TFC earlier, that was kind of the feeling I had from TFC. It was like they had kind of checked out and they just wanted to get home. But the Whitecaps, they wanted to be there. They still wanted to be there. And there was an interesting... I only went into Marc Santos's post-game press conference. Thomas Hasal and Russell Tybert were next up, but I wanted to get this started, so I didn't stay for that. But someone's just sent me Alex from Between the Sticks. I had tweeted out, Tybert said, I don't like the phrase depleted squad. We didn't play like it here. Our team showed heart. But saying it's a depleted squad's got nothing to do with showing heart. A depleted squad just means the numbers aren't there.
Yeah, I think Tybert's got the definitions mixed up there. So I that's fine. He obviously got it mixed up with what the person was trying to ask and what the answer he was giving. The one thing that I will say about, I do agree with you there that the one thing you can't dismiss them on is that they didn't play, with heart or whatever you want to say, play all out. They were not giving it in like TFC did, it seemed like. I think Anna retweeted somebody earlier on Twitter and said that it was a reminder to Whitecaps fans that unless you win this thing, there's no point of this tournament. This tournament is pointless, especially the knockout stages. I don't even know. Is there any advantage? You said there's a CONCACAF berth.
Whoever wins the overall tournament gets in the CONCACAF Champions League, and then there's $1 million in prize money.
So other than that, there's nothing.
No, I mean, the group games that counts towards the regular season, so that's worthwhile. But yeah, from this point onwards, like if you're a team in this competition, like let's see FC Cincinnati, the chances of you winning this is pretty slim. So why hang about any longer than you need to hang about?
Have they picked up a trophy at all, or are they going to wait till like the last weekend to pick up a trophy for whoever wins this thing?
I have to see what shops are open, and I don't know what malls are open with the engraving, but they'll work something out, I'm sure.
Maybe they'll pick up something on the side of the road or something like that.
Yeah, see, Chris Jericho's left anything lying around.
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing, though, right? I think you're a professional footballer, so you want. No, I mean these players in this tournament, you want to win, right? I'm sure the whole where they are and what's going on in the world plays a role mentally, for sure, no doubt. But you still want to win, right? Like I enjoyed last episode. I enjoyed the clip you shared with Brian Smetzer. A person who I have a lot of respect for, even though I really don't like his club. I think he has a good understanding of what a football club is and what his role is. And he was questioned about whether or not his team really wanted to be there in those first couple games.
It's the most stupid question.
Yeah, and he said we every football game we play, we want to win, and I think it's the same for all professional footballers. And my limited experience with them, especially close up in and around games, has shown me that over the years. That they do not like to lose, they do not like to draw, they do not like to be eliminated from things. And so that's one element. The CONCACAF Champions League thing, I think, is also may not be hugely significant, especially in the round of 16. Might not be hugely on their hearts or their minds, but I think it is significant. And then think about however this money gets broken up, I think is significant. Just think of, especially for this Whitecaps team, and maybe in some ways it's more significant because you don't have as many starters here playing.
Yeah,
right?
You're going to get a bigger share.
Yeah, so whatever the bonus would be, some of them might be almost, barely significant in comparison to their annual salary. So I think that for anyone at their job, when that's fair. There's a bonus on the line, I think you want to play for it. So I don't have any questions about Vancouver's effort at all, especially in these last two games. I think the effort was really apparent to anyone who watched the full games. But I mean, the depleted thing. I mean, they're depleted, and that's not a knock against and their effort, and that's not a knock against anyone individually or anything like that. And so, I think that's unfortunate that Rusty answered that question that way.
We won't go through much of the game because there really isn't too much to talk about. There's a couple of incidents I want to highlight just to finish off this part. First of all, I would argue Kinda could have got a second yellow and been sent off for KC, but I weigh that up by saying Gutierrez was also a lucky lad and could have got a second yellow and got sent off to the Whitecaps. So balanced itself out. But do you think either did deserve a second yellow?
I like I told you guys as we were, messaging during the game, I think Gutierrez is far more lucky to have stayed on the pitch than Kinda. I see the case for Kinda. I think he was okay to be let off the way he was. But that second tackle the first tackle by Gutierrez in MLS, I could have seen him sent off for that, even though
it didn't look bad at first, I thought, and then when you see the other angle and it's right on his ankle, you're like, "Ee."
When you see the guy did stop in front of him, so when you stop in front of somebody, it's hard to control yourself. But also the second Gutierrez one, there was an arm on him, like basically grabbing him as well, pulling him down. Like if you see it from the other angle, and I totally understand that you're saying that the two legs kind of did constitute, but you could see a pull there. I think because he gave Kinda the second chance, even though that might have been a off yellow, maybe a yellow, maybe not a yellow, because he gave him off. That's why he gave Gutierrez off, possibly.
Yeah, but they're not equal things, man. When you clamp like that, Steve, with those two, when you go in 2-footed like that, and you scissor or clamp or whatever, like that's like always a yellow card when you play the player that way. Like he was extremely fortunate in my opinion.
The only real things I know from the Whitecaps' point of view during the normal game, there was a couple of shots. There was that spell where they forced 3-4 corners, I think it was, and you had the Wong effort that was tipped over, and then there was Dahome's effort had been tipped over before that. That was a good little spell, and it was a bit like the Chicago game where they just caught that lightning in a bottle for those few minutes, whereas in Chicago it went in the back of the net. They're coming up against a much better keeper, obviously, in Tim Melia. But that and the Ali Adnan kind of free kick, I mean, that was pretty good as well. But obviously, we're going to talk about Thomas Asao as well. Over the course of 90 minutes, he's certainly saved the Whitecaps, had a couple of good saves. What was going through your mind when he took that head knock? Because I thought, this is just made for the story of how the Whitecaps are going to go out. Or it's going to be Ali Adnan, a cult hero, as he fends off all the saves and then saves 5 in the penalty shootout.
It was funny that earlier today I was on YouTube and I was just checking out random videos, the recommendations that pop up. And one of the recommendations was outfield players taking over for goalkeepers, a compilation. And it just happened to pop up today. And it was a couple. There was one Aston Villa one. I can't remember any of the names now. There's one that John Terry took over in Chelsea for one too. But that's the first thing that came to my mind, because you can see right away. I guess they knew. The camera people knew, because the camera went right to Ali Adnan to show him when he went down. But when you look at the replay, you could see that he was in pain, but you could see there was no knockout thing. Like he didn't look like he was knocked out at any point. So that's why. And wasn't there a player earlier, Dahomey? I think Dahomey was checked for concussion too at one point. Yeah. So there was a couple of concern. Yeah, there were a couple of knocks there that would have been really bad for them. But it looked like he was fine. The guy was ultimately amazing today. Like I thought he made some really good saves. His movement from back to side to side was really good. The Kinda save early on was really good. I know he only saved 1 out of 4 or whatever, which is pretty good average actually for a goalkeeper. But the fact, the way he stands on the line and the way he gives that little smirk, or like it looks like he's like, I want to nickname him the Joker or something like that, because he has that little smirk as people are coming up. So there was no tenseness in him when going into the penalty shootout. Yeah, where people might say that Melia was nervous, but maybe Melia is more intense. I don't think he was nervous, Melia, but he was more intense. Where Hassan was completely relaxed in that. Yeah, but in that play.
They said it on the broadcast, right? Like intensity
of more to lose.
Oh yeah, if you're Thomas, you got nothing to lose. If you're Amelia, you got everything to lose. His whole clapping of hands and banging the bar, again, like his attempted diving header outside the box the other day, reminded me a little bit of Manuel Neuer, because I've seen him do that before. Maybe he's not his goalkeeping hero, but maybe that is someone that has influenced him.
I did ask him who his hero was when we interviewed him back in February. I can't remember who he said. I'll try and check that out. But I mean, that it was 0-0 at the end of the 90 minutes. It kind of looked like that was how it was going. I was going to tweet that out, but I thought, no, folk here are very breaking their jinxes and stuff. So I didn't want to be held responsible for that. But it did make me wear my T-shirt for tonight. Goals are overrated. The beauty is in the struggle. Which was a T-shirt I offered to buy for Carl Robinson for him to wear when he was giving a team talk. And he said, can you imagine if I walked into the locker room wearing that? This was when they were going through their spell of not scoring. I really should have got him it. It would have been hilarious. But penalties it was. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll be back talking about that after this.
Hi, I'm Marc dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
This is the sound of an electric guitar.
From the black bag skip in the parking lot, it's a short bad trip to the candy shop where the shrimp sell smack to the jelly snakes and the kids buy crack in the morning break. Break! Glass grows blue on the other side, where the old girls queue for their mother's pride. For a slice of life, it's a bargain sale. Yeah, the price is right, but the bread is stout. Stout! From the high-rise piece of the office block to a 5-year lease on a cardboard box. From the old Queen's Head to the Burger King. My 57 make the baked beans when I drive that heat. Down the road, you can hear that cheap car stereo. Turn down low, rubbish on the radio.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part was the final song from this month's Artist of the Month here on AFTN, Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, with RUBBISH, or Rubbish if you want to call it. Their standalone third single that was released in June 1990. Didn't chart then, was re-released January 1992, reached number 14 in the UK charts. Did you enjoy this month's selection from Carter? I hope you did, because they're not quite finished yet. What I decided to do for this episode, the last one in July, there were so many good Carter songs that I was struggling to pick from, so I thought I would make tonight's three of a kind, also from Carter USM. So there's no guessing what the link is. The link is all that they're songs by Carter. They're also all B-sides, and they're also all cover versions, because that was one thing that Carter were very well known for, especially in their early singles, was doing some fantastic cover versions of some really good songs. And we're going to bring you three of those to kick off parts 3, 4 and 5. But let's get back now to our Whitecaps Sporting Kansas City post-game chat. So, the penalty shootout. When it went to penalties, I already had my headline. I tweeted it out, got in early, that the Whitecaps, the way they played, it was kind of ugly. So it'd be like the Ugly Sisters would become Cinderella, the Cinderella story of the MLS thing. It'd be a Disney fairy tale. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. Instead, we got some ugly penalties. They were not good penalties. Now, Dahomey, I don't think that was a bad penalty. He tried to place it. The goals are a little bit wider in Colombia, so I mean that's.
That was hit the inside of the post and still bounced out. Usually when it hits the inside of the post, it'll go in, but it actually bounced out. So that was I thought, who was the second one? Owosu. Yeah, that was not a good one.
That was lucky.
That was
he got it in, but it was a lucky little flighted ball. Derek's was not good.
Dahomey was the only one who took whose take was somewhat quality. I agree with you. The other three were really poor.
Reyna as well.
Actually, I think Reyna's was the worst one out of all three. At least Cornelius nailed it with some power or something like that. Hoping maybe it gets through him, but Reyna's, I don't know.
But see, penalties are even more so nowadays. I think an art form. Keepers more study players. They study statistics and then probabilities of, how bodies are shaped and where you're standing and all that kind of stuff. And I know, Michael, we were talking about this. You say the Whitecaps, they do some penalties at the end of every practice, but they did not look like a team. I mean, not that Kansas City was great, but the Whitecaps did not look like a team that had been spending the last couple of days preparing for a match that could have ended in penalties.
Where was Ali Adnan taking a penalty? Was he the fifth?
I think he would have been the fifth. Yeah, I think he would have been.
Well, why? Usually, when you don't normally keep your. Well, I'm assuming he's the best penalty killer, but penalty taker. But why would you save your best penalty taker for the last one? You want that quick start and get less confidence for the keeper that you're posing.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've seen different coaches do different things over the years. A lot of them do put their best guy up. I was happy that we were taken first. I thought, great. I wanted us to get first, put the pressure on. But then as soon as Dahomey missed, I was like, nah, that's going to be it. Now, fair play to Thomas. He saved one. He got his hand on one as well, and
two of them. Oh yeah. One of the Lucio's was was just off past his fingertip,
Yeah.
so he guessed right on that one too. There was only one he didn't guess right at all.
But we did get a message in the YouTube chat. Get some more messages in if you're watching this stream from Prog Tim, who said he's very proud of the boys, but what's the point of having rules about keepers leaving the line early when Melia left early on two of the ones he stopped? Now I've got to say I didn't notice that. I'll have to watch that back, but yeah, interesting if that is the case. Did you guys notice that?
No, I didn't notice that. The only one I noticed was the first one for that it was that triple kick that everybody's taking now, the hop, skip, and a kick.
Oh,
that,
yeah, I don't like that.
And that was the one where I think it should be, because if you're gonna if you want keepers to stay on the line, then you shouldn't be doing this it should be a straightforward kick, not like a delayed motion or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you do that delayed motion, if you do that delayed motion, the goalkeeper shouldn't be penalized for coming off the line then at that point.
Run up, hop, step, speak. I agree. I don't like those penalties at all, even though one of my favorite penalty takers, Robert Lewandowski, is, that's one of his main forms of taking a penalty. But that's what I'm talking about in terms of it being an art form now. I personally think the rules should probably hinder anything like that. I like when they stopped, you couldn't do that whole stutter or whatever. You have to have the forward motion going or whatever, which is now players have found ways to kind of to keep their forward motion while psyching out the keeper or whatever, like Alan Polito did on his. But that when I say penalties are an art form, that you have to work at that. They cannot be an add-on. That, especially when you're going to a match where a whole bunch of players are going to be taking them. You need to have players who are working at them and not just going up there and being like, as I'm walking up, I think I'm going to put it over here. No, they need to know going in. I used to tell my players when I would coach youth players, like, look, if you miss, you get stopped, I'm okay. I'm going to ask you when you go back if you put the ball where you wanted it to go. I just want you to make a decision before you get there and to put it there, and that's it. And if you get stopped, fair enough. If you mishit it, fair enough. If it goes over, fair enough. But I want you need to go with a determination and a plan. And I think professional players should they didn't. The penalties again, even a couple of the KC ones did not look like they weren't quality. Like the one Thomas saved, it was a good save. Don't get me wrong, but the placement and the pace of it was not good.
But I think that was one where Hasal deked out the penalty taker, because he went one way and then went back the other way, making the taker think he was going to go that way.
The advice I always gave when I was coaching the kids was you hit it as hard as you can, straight down the middle, aim for the keeper's nuts. If it goes in because he's dived, great. If it doesn't and it hits him square in the nuts, he's ruled out for the next couple of kicks, so you've got more of a chance. Not
Sage
coaching,
advice.
Yeah, not coaching youth anymore. I don't know if but it works.
Russell's nuts got hit a little bit there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Was he just pretending that, or because that hit his hand?
Yeah.
His hand hit himself, or
it's a Scottish thing. Your hand's always down there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say that too.
Michael.
It's like when we were watching the game earlier, and when Gary Mackay-Steven came on for New York City FC, my new Scottish bud in MLS, I'd said to Caitlin, "Oh, here he is, he's Scottish." And she looked up at the screen and she's like, "He looks ill." I'm like, no, that's just how Scottish people look. We're really, really pale.
You got to understand that guys and have that part of the region and their hands have a special relationship. So when their hands get hit, it's a very simpatico relationship where they feel it everywhere.
Anyway, so we're finished now. The Whitecaps are out. They're going home. If you listen to this on the podcast, we'll play a little bit of audio now from both head coaches. So we'll have SKC's Peter Vermes up first, then a little bit from the gaffer, MDS.
And so proud of the guys for them staying focused and concentrated, because they deserve to advance. They deserve to win the game. So it was very good performance and good execution at the end.
Peter, you were talking about the defense. It's been one of the things, maybe the late, the first game when the defense maybe let down. That didn't happen here this time. And also really the chances they got a couple of times they got the ball down the field, but there always seemed to be someone there. Is that just a product of the team maturing, or better preparation, better matchups? What do you attribute that to?
Incredible coaching. No. Look, I think that the guys are. I think some of it is confidence, and I think some of it is feeling good about the things that we're doing in training and then executing in the games. As I said, I think if you look at the way we played against Salt Lake, we didn't give any chances away against a very, very good team. And then today we really didn't give any chances away. And I think the guys are gaining confidence in that world, that I think has a lot to do with reading of the game, has to do with the work that the guys are doing off the ball, and we're collapsing with more than just one or two guys around the player. We're collapsing with 3 and 4 sometimes, and we're not giving teams a lot of space on the ball, and I think that's really, really good. And then the other thing is we're getting a lot better with second balls, which is something that we've always struggled with a little bit, and we've gotten a lot better. This group is actually doing a really good job with it. So all those things are helping, and everybody's defending, everybody's working hard. And the other thing too is I think that we're starting to get more pressure up top, because I think that our fitness is definitely increasing.
I know the answer oftentimes on this one is both, right? Like, because it's a team game, right? The offense and the defense, they feed off each other. But you were so aggressive offensively. Did that really allow the defense to loosen up, or was it the fact that the defense was so tight really allowed you guys to get so far forward and be so aggressive? I know that's how Vancouver plays, so they kind of invite that style, but still, you guys play with a ton of confidence up front, even though you didn't get a goal.
We did. I mean, we moved the ball well, and we created great chances. You got to give their goalkeeper a lot of credit. The young kid did a good job. We could have, there's some situations. Sometimes you can be obviously a lot more clinical. You can be, more concentrated on those things. But, sometimes when they don't happen, you also can't lose yourself, and we didn't do that today. And I think, I think the question's actually a good one. I think one thing you have to take into consideration is that you still have to maintain a high level of concentration when you have the ball a lot, like we did in the game, especially defensively. And so what tends to happen is that you have to keep a compact group to make sure that all of a sudden you don't get picked apart, because now all of a sudden you're kind of pressing for a goal, and you open yourself at the back. And I thought we had good balance in our attack, and I do think that the guys, their active defending in today's game was actually really, really good. It wasn't an easy game to play.
Looking ahead to this next match against Philadelphia, what's the approach, and what are the things that you want to see from the team and work on ahead of that one?
Yeah, it'll definitely be a different game. They have a lot of energy, that team. They, from front to back are very solid. Their team plays on both sides of the ball for sure, really, really well. There's not a lot of holes in their group, and so we expect it to be a really, really tough match for us. And it'll be different. We're at 8 o'clock, I think the game is. So, we're going from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. to 8 p.m. And who knows, we'll see where the next one goes, hopefully, after that, if we get through.
I thought tactically our approach, how we covered the ground, how we wanted to go about the game, the effort of everyone was fantastic. We tried to put ourselves in a position that in the second half we could have finished in our opportunities. There's two very close ones. I think a shot that got deflected from Theo that was so close. Then a very good free kick from Ali that was close. Look, my guys are fantastic. The foundations of this group and the foundations of what we could be about, it's great. And I'm very excited to see how this group is going to look like when we're going to be able to work with consistency with everyone. Very young team in the field today. Incredible professionalism, effort. We did everything we could. And then penalty shots, it's 50-50, I saw Maradona miss, I saw Platini miss, I saw Ronaldinho miss, then it happens. But I'm very proud of the group, I'm very proud of our guys, and I'm very proud of the staff. Not only the technical staff, the medical, everybody that came here with the right attitude. And every time there was a setback or a problem, the attitude of the staff, of everyone in the club and the players was incredible. So we're leaving this tournament stronger, that's for sure.
Obviously, you're going to be sitting disappointed there just now with how you went out, but what was the message that you gave to the guys in the dressing room once they came back in off the pitch?
I spoke to the staff. I spoke to the staff and to the players, letting everybody know that I'm proud of everyone. I'm proud of how after we conceded 7 goals in 2 games, we were able, without really training, to readjust things and not concede a goal in the last 180 or more minutes. Being a team that was very organized and knowing what we wanted to do in the last 2 games, it was clear. And our guys are coming out of this stronger, better. Our group is fantastic. Our players that worked so much on the field are a great group of guys, and that's why they were able to push and do well. And we got knocked out against a very good team, a very good Sporting Kansas City team, where we played equal and where our guys have to be proud of themselves.
What can you rescue from the team on the whole tournament, knowing that you have players back home that they can make this team even better and stronger?
Yeah, we just think about the full puzzle. Guys, Bikel, Maxime Crépeau, Brian Meredith, Eric Godoy, Andy Rose, David Milinkovic, Toss Ricketts, Freddie Montero, Lucas Cavallini, all guys that are out at this moment. So when we look at the full picture, we have to be confident that we're going to make this team grow. Everybody's working hard for that. We lost tonight in penalty shots. We're sad, we're disappointed because we felt that we were close. But then you have to put that aside, look at the big picture, look at what we could look like, and keep working. We're in the right direction as a club. Our culture that is being created by everyone is the right one, and we will be a strong club. I'm very confident about that.
From day one, knowing that you came in with a diminished team, you never made an excuse for this team, and you knew that they had the right mentality for it. Can you talk about the will of this group and what they were able to do as a team to be able to get this far despite all the challenges they had?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I really believe that my job is to find solutions, not to find excuses. My job is not to cry. And please, if I start finding excuses, you guys could point it at me and say, hey, Marc, make sure you don't start with excuses, because it's not what I'm about. My job is to make sure that I maximize the players that I have and I give everything I can to them. And that's what I want to do. I get exhausted after games because I want to be with them. I want to almost run with them. You know, I feel for them, everything they give. And it's a group that I love, and it's a group that I want to get better with. So my job is that. My job is not to cry about who's not here. Everybody knows what's going on with us. My job is with who's here. How do we find solutions to succeed? And how do I invest my time as a coach to build players and to make them better and to make them believe? But today, guys, it's not about me or the work. It's about credit to the mentality of a group that doesn't give up, fought, and that I'm very proud of.
So a few things, I've written them down that MDS kind of said in the press conference there. He basically feels that what we saw from the team in this tournament is the foundation of what we as the team can be about, and he thinks that the foundations that are laid are great for the future. He talked about his game plan was to try and just keep it scoreless and then to go for it in the second half. I would argue, though, that they didn't really go for it in the second half. That's the only thing. They had a few forays forward, but it didn't look like they were going out all guns blazing to try and get the goal.
I think the big difference there is that the Sporting Kansas City's backline midfield was much more organized than what Chicago's was. And they didn't open up as much, and I think that's the big difference there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Steve. You're not playing when you're playing Kansas City. You're playing a team that is well organized. You're playing a team that has a very defined way of playing, and they've been playing it for years. Whereas, you're playing Chicago. You have a new coach. You have a number of new players. It's a whole different kettle of fish. I think they tried to go for it. They just didn't have as many subs to create to make a difference. I thought we talked about this earlier, but the one person maybe they could have brought on and didn't was Raposo, right? I thought maybe he could have a bit of a especially with what I think he felt with MDS would feel as such limited options. I thought Raposo could have been brought on to help things out a bit.
The only thing I thought about that was because he's young and he's just in the pro ranks from college, did he maybe feel that keeping Theo on because he knows the system and he would maybe put in a better defensive shift than what Ryan would do, and he just didn't want to take that risk at that point? It's like, if it's going to be 0-0, you may as well just go for penalties at that point.
Yeah.
Michael, can I bring up a question from the chat here?
Mm-hmm.
Good thing, I think, here. What did you guys think? This is from Darnell Smith, so thanks for the question, Darnell. What did you guys think of Adnan in front of Gutierrez? I thought we had far better pressure on the ball out wide.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it against Chicago. We talked about that's what we'd like to see. I didn't think it was as effective tonight as that electric time against Chicago, but I like it. Ali, I spoke to him in the pre-game press conference, and one of the questions was about him playing in that position. He said he prefers to play left back, but he does like 5 at the back. And I think that is because it allows him, to get forward, and he's still got the cover back there if need be. Tonight, it was good, but it wasn't as good as it could be. But I think that is something to definitely work on. I like Gutierrez. What we've seen of him so far, I think is very good.
The thing is with them playing 5 at the back, if either Rancor or Godoy is that the middle of the 3, I think they're not going to lose anything in possession, because those guys can handle the ball, and I think that would work really well for them. So I think that without going forward, that might work. But I didn't see any. I know Gutierrez could have got sent off, obviously with a second yellow card, but overall defensively, I didn't see any difference, or I thought it was actually might have been even an improvement over what Adnan offers back there. So I thought it was pretty good, and I thought they really, the left side, we talked about before, they had a good few spells of interlocking play, those two. So I thought it really worked well.
Yeah, I think it gives them something to think about for whenever it is they get to play games next, because I think it is a potential really good option for them, whether it's an every match thing or situational thing, or as they're facing certain kinds of opponents. I think it definitely adds something. And it also does allow Gutierrez to tuck in and Ali to drop deep in, when you're in a pressure situation, in terms of maybe trying to hold on to a lead or to see a game, to see out a point on the road or whatever.
Let's get to some of the chats here. So Darnell Smith again says, how great was it to see MDS tactically be competitive despite all his injuries and short recovery? And it was good. He did talk about, in the build-up to the Chicago game, he wants the fans to see what he is as a coach, that he is a leader, and that he can get the best out of his team. And you might say, well, it wasn't too exciting attacking performances, but I think it was what we needed to do. And I think he showed some good tactical awareness there. And if you look at his teams in the past, the Deltas, when he was with Swope Park and at Ottawa, it was always built out of a solid defence first and foremost. And I think that's really what he has to kind of work on now, because the attacking pieces are there, but we are still badly needing a decent midfield as well.
Yeah, I think the midfield is probably the number one thing, but that back line has shown, especially, and I think when Eric Godoy gets back and they pick up a few more pieces, especially if they can get that midfield going a little bit in order to protect them, especially in the wide areas. I think that this back line is going to be pretty solid with Renko and Godoy leading the way, and that they had. I know some of the players are still there, but they basically done a total rebuild on that back line ever since Kendall Waston left. Even I think Kendall Waston's last year, that back line wasn't that great. More like when Tim Parker, yeah. When Tim Parker left, that was when they had that big drop off. So I think bringing Renko, Godoy, I thought they bought Renko, but I guess they didn't. Do you have him on loan for option to purchase? Sorry.
Yes, it's a 1-year loan, because when I spoke to him, I asked him about that, whether he's just using this as a shop window to go back to Europe, but he said, no, I'd like to, my aim is to get signed permanent and to stay here. I liked him. For me,
I thought been one of their top three players in this tournament.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because Hassal's probably the big takeaway from this, but after that, for me, it's Renko. I just thought he's been excellent.
I was just going to say, tactically, I think the last two games, I think it's fair to give MDS a lot of credit. I think tactically they were lacking in the Seattle game. And obviously that's muddied by the fact that the team they're playing is so superior for them, even with all their players. But I also felt like, from a tactical perspective, they needed to get something from that San Jose game. They needed to see out that lead, whether it was even, I mean, it wouldn't have been great if it was a draw, but even if it was a draw, more could, and I know there's all these circumstances around everything, but if you just feel like tactically more could have been done in that game to see them get something from it. But I have a lot of respect for MDS and the way he approaches the game and how hard he works and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm not saying he, is super deficient or anything, but I think he would like to have both those games back in terms of how both he drew things up and more so the San Jose game, how they adapted within the game itself.
So just a couple of quick final things from the chat here, then we'll take another little break. Team Batesy says he thought things were better offensively wise, but than before the break against Chicago, but it was slanted. Navid Masinchi says, better team went through, but the guys really put in a shift. That's all you can ask for from this group. Prog Tim says, the mood would be a lot different, he thinks, if Hassal didn't play out of his mind and we'd lost 2 or 3-0. Possibly. I mean, if this had been a hammering tonight, which it could easily have been, I do think the mood of the supporters coming out of it is going to be very different. But you could say that really about a lot of games.
So true.
Yeah,
it depends. It depends on the result all the time. But if you were going to say that after the result against Chicago, you think there were a lot more people that were happy about the game instead of criticizing the game.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about that last show. If you couldn't be happy after that and going through, I don't know what you're looking for from a Whitecaps perspective, but yeah.
Michael, you should read Naveed's next comment. He says, is it 10 wins in 40 games, though, for MDS? We need to look into that.
He hasn't won a lot, yes. I mean, it's certainly that, but that's 25%.
Oh, Michael, the next comment the last comment is even better. Tillman D says, I bought some chocolate digestives after listening to the last episode. Do you get a commission for that?
Oh, I should get in touch with McVitie. So it's only if you bought the McVitie's ones. If you bought some of the store-bought ones or the Dare ones that they have over here, then no. So let us know what brand. Hopefully it is McVitie's, because that is the only one. We are looking at possibly doing some chocolate digestive T-shirts. So there we go. That's a good way to end this part. So if you listen to it on the podcast, we'll be back with more Whitecaps chat after this.
Hi, I'm Johnny Russell and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
You dress me up, I'm your puppet. You buy me things, I love it. You bring me food, I need it. You give me love, I feed it! Well, how do you want me? Boiled or fried? We're having fish. Look at the two of us, in sympathy with everything we see. I never wanted anything, it's easy. You buy me whatever I need. Look at my hopes, look at my dreams. The currency we've spent. I love you, you pay my rent. I love you.
Pleasure, the inevitable byproduct of our civilization. Tragedy of your times, my young friends, is that you may get exactly what you want.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the first of tonight's three-of-a-kind songs. And if you listen to part 2, you'll know that there's no guessing of what the connection is this week. They are all B-sides, all cover versions by AFTN's Artist of the Month for July, Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. And we kicked off part 2 with their single Rubbish, and that was a B-side from the single Rubbish. It's a cover of the 1987 Pet Shop Boys single Rent, and a very good version it was indeed. So, a little bit more of what MDS said after the game. He praised his team for the professionalism, the effort, and he feels that they did everything that they could. That they're coming out of the tournament stronger and better than they went into it, and that it's going in the right direction as a club, and that we will be a strong club. Now, I mentioned his comments about the foundations of what this club could be earlier on. Do you feel, considering who wasn't here, and looking at what the other teams are in this tournament, that we do have a strong foundation? Or are we still desperately needing some pieces to really be able to compete in MLS? We know we need a 10. But if you add that 10, and you've got all the players that weren't down there fit and ready to go, obviously we've lost Max Kripol, whether we have Thomas Asal or Brian Meredith going forward for the next little spell will be interesting to see. But do you think we have what it takes to compete, or are we still way off the pace?
For me, I'm going to sound like a broken record again, but for me, it's the midfield. The midfield is sorely lacking still. If Mikel comes in there and he's your fourth guy or a starter and you knock somebody else to the bench, that might do better. But you're 100% right about the number 10. The number 10 is needed, and that number 10 needs to be either their best player or their second best player on their roster. It doesn't have to be the salary-wise, doesn't have to be the top or second best, but talent-wise and everything like that has to be their best or second best player on their roster. And if they do that, then they have a chance to compete because there are other pieces around. We've seen the homie. I've been very impressed with him from what considering the circumstances. I've been with it, what he's done in flashes. I didn't expect very much from Milinkovic, and he only showed stuff in flashes, so that's fine. And other players have shown flashes, but if that number 10 comes in there, and I think that they're off and running, and they're in a much better chance to compete with other teams.
It's a really good question, Michael. You have to think that they would be, encouraged by what happened in this tournament. And I think it's really helpful for a team and for a squad when you get to have more people involved in something positive. And so I think they're going to view this as a positive. And so those players aren't going to be, starters with whatever happens for the rest of the season. That might, spur them on and help them to play at their top level or maybe even above themselves when they do get to be in the squad or make appearances or come off the bench or whatever. I do think they are lacking, and we won't go into the details of the DP conversation again, but I agree with you both that they need a creative central attacking midfield player. I would settle for a Johnny Russell, who's a wide attacking creative kind of midfield player, but
so would I
think, yeah, but I really think they need to have that, and we talk about this all the time. Pedro Morales is the best example of what they've had in the MLS. Wasn't perfect, but by far the best example. My heart wants to say you have to also consider Davide Cumento at the beginning of MLS as well. Although he was very rarely played centrally, he was often shifted wide for other reasons. But
another guy that's underrated for a guy, he wasn't a midfielder, but he was really good at creating and driving the play, was Kenny Miller. Kenny Miller was, he was a striker, but he usually played behind Camilo a little.
Yeah,
and I thought he was really good at connecting play a lot.
Well, yeah,
that's the experience factor though as well.
Yeah,
to take that tangent even further, it wasn't even. Kenny Miller was his experience and all that, and his abilities were a huge part of that. But it was also the triumphant of him playing with. He had that run where him, Camilo, and Russell Tybert were quite the threesome. They were quite a creative mix and a goal scoring mix. And that's, I don't know if that's the kind of lightning they're going to catch in the bottle really easy in Vancouver now, but they need someone who can help create. They're in desperate need for that. I know earlier I picked on, the movement and stuff. And again, part of the counter to that is that this is not all their natural offensive pieces and all that kind of stuff, but they are still missing some creative offensive pieces that can really, the language you've used in the past is be a game changer, or make a difference in the game. And
but you look around the league and you're seeing all these teams that find these pieces, and not all of them are like from spending money. Some of them obviously are. Diego Valeri didn't cost Portland a lot of money. Look what he's done for them. He's the kind of guy that every club dreams of having somebody like him. But there's some other good number 10s in the league that they've been found, and you have to maybe wonder, why aren't they coming here? Is it the fact that we're a Canadian club? Because a lot of these we could afford. Is it our scouting systems let us down over the years? Is it we relied too much on getting players from certain agencies and stuff in previous years and maybe didn't have those talents available?
Are they trying to get players that are maybe not experienced, like you said, but have up value that they can try to sell off or later on, but they don't actually translate?
Yeah,
and
I
so
think we're doing
that's
that too much. It's like, how many seasons now have we had a coach, whether it's Robbo or MDS or the player themselves, talking about, I'm here to put myself in the shop window and get a better move, and then they don't perform. Or the coach saying, there's a lot of upside to him, or, we've seen what he can do, but he was struggling at his current club, so we want to try and reignite him and bring him back to what he could be. You can only have a certain amount of that in a team. Last season, we had way too many of them. We had like 5 or 6 projects, and none of them really came together. We need a finished article. And it's all very well going and spending like $6 million on Cava. Great. Not going to knock that. He's a great guy. I'm sure he'll get the goals for us once we get back to playing, whenever that's going to be, if he does indeed play. But it's no point having a top striker if you're not getting any creativity to give him the ball. Especially someone like Cava that's maybe not a guy that goes out and makes his own opportunities.
No, I can't agree with you more, Michael. That's something that, even though they might not say it publicly, that you got to think people like MDS and Axel Schuster are, dying to bring in someone, as you described, of that quality and who will be able to contribute in those ways. So that's a lot about the offense. You talked a little bit about the defense earlier, sort of, Michael, but do you think that everything's fine at the back?
No.
I think they're better off.
Yeah.
I think they're getting to the point. I think they have the pieces. It's a matter of putting those pieces together. The only, and I don't want to knock them, but the only position that I see a weakness on right now is that right side. Not only because it's Jake, but Jake really has no cover, because I'd rather see Bikel in the midfield at this point. So
let me put this to you then. Let's assume everyone is fit and healthy, and it's the squad that we have, because Schuster's basically talked about they're not looking to bring anyone else in. He said that several times now in Zoom chats over the last couple of weeks. So ignore the goalkeeper, because I think Thomas Hasal will get a run now, but not guaranteed. First of all, what formation do you think we should be playing with who we've got? And then we'll kind of go through who would be the defence and stuff. The formation for me is the tough one, because you look at some of the players we've got and you're like overloaded in potentially talented wingers. You're overloaded with maybe defensive central midfielders, but you've still got this big missing piece that's going to link everything together. An interesting thing, I'll be playing this in the next part. Jim Curtin, the Philly head coach, after his game on Saturday night, he just said an interesting thing during the game, so I asked him about it afterwards, where he said at one point he felt he had 5 at the back, 5 up front, and there was absolutely nothing in the middle. And that's how it's felt a little bit for the Whitecaps. Even when we've actually had bodies there, it's felt like we don't.
Well, for Whitecaps, usually it's 5 at the back, 5 in the middle, and nobody up front. That's usually what their problem is. But you're saying everybody's healthy, right?
Yeah,
you're saying
you've got a full squad to pick from.
I think that it's easy for me. Then it's whether you want to call it a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2. That's the ideal thing, because I really like those 3 defenders in the back, and allowing Ali Adnan and whoever plays on the right side to move up the pitch and attack from the wide areas. I think that gives them more width and everything like that.
So, Steve, formation, fill it out for us. Who's playing in those?
For me right now at this point, I got Godoy and Renko and either Cornelius and Kamiri in that in that third spot. I got on the right side, you put Jake or Bikel in there. And left side, you put Gutierrez. Oh, sorry, Adnan. Sorry, and then up. Who else? Who's left? 5-3-2. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting position. There's the 3 up, 3 in the middle. I would probably stick in with Owosu and Imbom for sure, and either put Tybert or Bikel, depending on who you put on the right side. And up top, I got Cavallini and Reyna or Dahomey. One of those 2. So that'd be my lineup.
It's all about consistency at that point, and it's like which one of the wingers is going to be consistent, because we saw it last year. You had Venuto and Bangura. Whichever one was playing crap, and whichever one came off the bench was doing good. So it's like that's not ideal. Hopefully we don't have a similar situation with that. What about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, I think I think we know in MDS's heart he wants to play 5-3-2 or 3-5-2. I don't know. I don't think they have don't think they fully have the players to play that every match. That's a problem. Like even what Steve said, I think is not bad. But not only is it maybe not something they could play all the time, I think if you want to bring on subs for that, it's hard to fit them into that formation. Like if you want to bring on Milinkovic, where's he going to go in your 5-3-2 unless he's an out-and-out striker? Or you're changing the formation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But
yeah, I think it would be more changing the formation at that point. But
so for me, I've always thought that. I mean, they played Peter Vermes tonight, and I have a lot of respect for him as well, despite the taunting back in the USL days and early MLS days. I think. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but the Whitecaps really kind of need to carve out an actual identity in terms of playing. And I think if you were able to do, I don't think they will be able to do that really, truly. But if you were able to do that, that would really help shape things the way it does for a club like Kansas City. But I would probably go 4-2-3-1, where you can do things like they did tonight in terms of Gutierrez and Ali together on the one side. But with the whole roster, yeah, that's a little bit. So I'll play a 4-2-3-1 with the whole roster. So I would go with of the current players, I would go with Bikel or Godoy as my right back. I would go with Ranko and either Godoy or DC as my center back. And then I would go with probably start the game. I would probably start Adnan at left, truly as a left back. But later in the game, I'd look to bring on Gutierrez and push him forward. And then Owosu and I guess Bikel, if he's not at center back, is kind of the holding. Is the two. And then I guess you have to put Imbaum in that central attacking role, even though I don't think it fits him. And we've talked about that lots, and lots of people talk about that lots. And then wide, again, even though it doesn't suit him, you probably got to put Reyna in one of those wide spots. Cava is obviously in the middle, and then either Dahome or Milinkovic in the other wide spot. Which again, it feels like a lot of. Let's put it this way: it feels like a lot of oval pegs in round holes. Not quite right, but not totally off, but not perfect.
I like 4-2-3-1. It's always been a position that I've liked. And for me, it's going to be very similar to Zach. I would have Bikel as right back. It's not his favoured position. That's the only thing that would concern me about that. But I'd have him as right back with Godoy and Ranko. Once they hopefully establish some kind of partnership, I think that's two solid defenders back there. With Ali starting at left back, then if you need to make a switch later on, you bring Guti on and you push Ali further up the pitch. My two holding, I might actually put Imbaum back there beside Owusu.
For me, if Bikel's playing right back, then yeah, I'd put Imbaum there. And I'd put Reyna.
Yeah, I'd have Reyna like behind Cava within Dahome and Milinkovic either side of that. I think that's an exciting team. I think it's a team that could do well. There should be creativity there. And if you gave Imbaum a kind of free floating role where he's a 6, he's an 8, he's a 10, but he's just in that middle channel, you're not getting him go out wide or whatever. I thought he had his best game of the 4 games in the tournament tonight, but it was a very low bar to begin with because he wasn't great. He had a couple of flashes, and there was that time in the second half, where the Whitecaps had a break and then he got the ball out wide and then he gave it away. And I'm screaming at my TV, the one thing you just did not want to do there was give it away because we'd pushed everyone up. And then it was a case of scrambling back. So you can't afford to do that. And I don't like ragging on players just because they're designated players. But in this league, it comes with a tag, it comes with expectations. And for me, he's not lived up to that. For a guy that wants to go and play in Europe, he needs to do so much better.
I was every time Imbaum making a mistake or something like that, I was like, come on, Imbaum, prove Zach wrong. That was every time. I said it out loud, too. I was like, come on, prove Zach wrong.
I
I was just joking to myself and made myself laugh.
I agree with what Michael said, and that's what I said as we were chatting about the game as it was going on. Like, yeah, there's so much. Maybe he does face so much more criticism, but it's because of those things. Yeah, the tag, what he's getting paid, whatever. Like there are expectations that come with that, and he also has shown glimpses of what he can do, and he did even in that game. To me, like you said, Michael, it was his best game of the tournament.
Yeah. I personally think that the three guys in the midfield, whether you want to put Bikel, Mbom, Tybert, or Hoosu in there, I think all of them can like almost rotate. Like you could almost rotate them, and they could play all. Sometimes you can play Hoosu up front. Sometimes you can play they can always take turns pushing up front. So I think they're very interchangeable only because none of them are that pure number 10 that you need. So all of them could play kind of that role.
So let's bring this back around to what Michael originally asked. Those teams, whether it's the one I mentioned, the one Michael mentioned, the one you mentioned, Steve, how competitive do you think that team is in MLS moving forward, or in the rest of whatever 2020 is or into 2021?
Yeah, not enough because of that missing piece. I'm so I know I hate being repetitive about this, but that missing piece is crucial to them. It doesn't have to be a pure number 10, but it has to be somebody that can play like a number 10.
Yeah. I think they'd be competitive for the last potential playoff spot. I don't think they're a bottom of the conference team. We'll come to what the future might look like in a sec. Last thing we'll talk about then in this part. Prog Tim says he would put Kamiri on the right, which sounds terrifying to me, but Bikel higher up, and Godoy, Ranko, and Cornelius in the middle.
That sounds like four center backs.
Yeah. I think the defence is the key, because I think we could be competitive if we're not giving up goals. Because I fancy Cava, Dahomey, Reina to put some goals away. If we're giving up 2 or 3 goals a game, it's like no chance.
That's why for me, and I know you want to end this now, but soon, but for me, those 3 guys at the back, especially Godoy and Ranko, they've shown an ability to control the ball. So I feel like if you have those 2 guys definitely in the middle, it allows the other midfielders to push up, and then you don't have to have a Tybert come back to collect the ball, or you don't have to have another player to collect the ball. Those guys can distribute the ball from the back. So I think that would work better.
Yeah. A couple of things I was going to quickly mention, some tweets, because I'd asked what the mood of the fan base was like during the game, because I know there's a lot of fans that like to see more attacking football than trying to grind out a 0-0 draw and get to penalties. So we had comments such as from Sky Buller, who said, from oddsmakers' worst team and everyone saying we won't get a point, to being top 13 with 11 players missing by the end, I'll take it, proud of the effort. But then you've got Ryan Burns at Authentic Me 13, who says that he doesn't like to see small successes championed as positives when they are actually negatives, and he feels that we grow from expecting better and not accepting failure. He wants better, and he hopes for a culture in the city and amongst the fan base that does that. He feels that saying that they had done well to get out the group, etc., was being too charitable, and that if we're to grow as a club and supporters, we need to call out not being good enough while still wanting it to be better. Think that's fair?
Yeah, that's fair. You can definitely call it out, but you also have to take into account what they were dealing with. You could say that they haven't established a culture, but prior to this tournament, they only played 2 games. So how much of an effect did they have to establish that over the season? That I think this is the season they wanted to do that, where they wanted to establish something. And when you play 2 games, one of them was a very surprising win against the Galaxy. Nobody expected that. The first game was obviously very disappointing. Then they came back with the surprise, then shut down. And then, so many months later, they got to go to a bubble with half their team or majority of their starters missing. You could definitely want more and want better, but you also have to take into account what they went through.
Michael, who's the tweet from again?
Ryan Burns.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I get that. I get that in one sense, but aside from I believe what Steve said is very important. But aside from that, like if we go back to the discussion we had earlier about what we think the best lineup and best formation to make them competitive is, I don't see that team, one, winning a lot, but two, and maybe more importantly, I don't see them playing football that's going to be crazy exciting for people, like home games. One of the things about this tournament is you didn't have to perform for home games. I think Stephen Hagan talked about last week in terms of how that affected scores and even some results and some attitudes within matches that impacted the overall result. So like, I know some people like yourself, Michael, have the perspective of, hey, if every game is like LA away, we win 1-0, it's not pretty, we nick a goal, I don't care, we won, we got the 3 points, we're going the right way in the table, all that kind of stuff. But I think in the modern era, that's just not good enough for some people. And so I think in MLS, I think it's hard to do both. And I think we've seen other coaches in this city at this organization get in trouble for, not get in trouble, but have dealing with perception issues over winning but not winning well, or winning with having 30% possession or whatever. And so I think they're going to have the same thing. I think with knowing all the limitations, as Steve said, not just for this tournament, but for the organization in general, you can't have both. And I think it's going to be very difficult for Marc Santos to both get results and do it in a way that makes people happy.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Might get a chat with MDS during the week and we'll bring it on next week's show just to kind of see what the future holds in store. I asked him a little bit about the future in the press conference tonight, and I asked that as well during the TFC press conference, because no one really knows what's going to happen. We're going to look at that in part 5. But for now, we're going to round off this part with this week's Wavelength. And we're going back to 1998 for this week's song, and a ska punk band hailing from Detroit, Michigan, The Insiders. This is a song from their Fight of My Life album, and it's called Game Day.
I'm the best goalkeeper that they ever seen. I'm just a normal guy trying to catch a dream, held back by destiny, not to mention by my team. That I needed to rise like cream to the top. I knew that in a couple of years I'd be playing in the World Cup. So tell me, why did you pick me? Why did you say me? So tell me, why did you pick me? Why did you say me? Respected and my fate was sealed by the hand that gave me everything. Now took it all away. Now I sit and watch a game and that I love to play. So tell me, why did you pick me? Why did you say me? So tell me, why did you pick me? Why did you say me? Trying to fix
Detroit ska punk band The Insiders there with a song from the 1997 album Fight of My Life. That was Game Day. Played, of course, because Sunday, the day that we're recording this show, was the Whitecaps game day. Sadly, a day that did not go the way that we all hoped. Who knows when the next game day is actually going to be? We'll be back with more chat after this.
Hi, I'm Derek Cornelius, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
This wasn't supposed to happen. I was happy by myself. Accidentally, you seduced me. I'm in love again. I lie in my bed, totally still. My eyes wide open. I'm in rapture. I don't believe this. I'm in love. This wasn't supposed to happen. I've been hit with your charm. How could you do this to me? I'm in love again.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's another Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine cover. This time, Hit by the Sugar Cubes. The Icelandic band that sparked the career of Björk. That was a single they released in 1991. The lead single from their final studio album, Stick Around for Joy. It's a single which I also bought. But that is a really good version there by Carter. If you haven't heard the original, check that out, see how it compares. I kind of think I prefer Carter's version. And that song was taken from their 1993 single, Lean On Me, I Won't Fall Over, which was the song we actually played from the band in last week's show. I've got one more Carter song to come, and that's going to be kicking off the final part of tonight's show. So that is half of the round of 16 matches in the books already. 2 games took place on Saturday, 2 took place on Sunday. So we've already looked at the Whitecaps against SKC. Let's have a quick look at the other 3 matches that's taken place so far. Bring you a little bit of post-game audio from those as well, because there's a lot of Canadian interest in these matches. So the action got underway on Saturday, early evening. Well, I say action. It wasn't exactly an action-packed game between Orlando City and Montreal Impact. Orlando pretty much dominated this game. They controlled the possession, they had more shots, but overall, there was only actually 3 shots on target for the whole game. 2 by Orlando, 1 by Montreal. Orlando did get a goal ruled out for offside just before half-time, but on the hour mark, up popped Tesho Akindele, and the Canadian had one of the simplest tap-ins I think that you're going to see in this tournament, and he described it afterwards as one of the easiest goals of his career so far. And the reason for that, if you haven't seen it, was a horrible defensive play by Montreal. What a Vanney. Yep, Rod Vanney, playing the ball back to Clement Diop. Diop couldn't control it, the ball ran over his foot into the path of Akindele, who had an open net in front of him and had the easiest jobs of tapping it home. And to be honest, it never really looked that Montreal were going to get back into this one. And it was a very disappointing way for Montreal to have gone out of the tournament, really. On the plus side, they have gone home, taken 3 points from the group games, which is enough to have put them into the playoff positions in the Eastern Conference. So that's certainly a positive. And that was actually one of the questions that I asked in the post-game to Impact players Samuel Piette and Jukka Raitala. So let's hear what they had to tell me after the match.
It's a disappointing way to go out of the tournament, but you go home sitting in the playoff spot. No one really knows what's happening for the rest of the season, but what do you feel the team can take out of this tournament to bring into whatever is the rest of the season?
Yeah, again, I honestly felt until this game that we really started to play better. If I think about the first game, going forward from there, I think we performed better. DC was good game, and I'm glad with the clean sheet we managed to get. And today was tough, especially the first half. They really hurt us on our sides. They played very well. We didn't. What I want to take back, we're obviously happy to play games for a long time, but we will continue working hard, and as soon as we get back on the field, we have to be better.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously we would have liked to collect more points, but let's not forget we're sitting in the fifth spot in the East. Like you said, this is a playoff spot, and that's what we wanted to accomplish first in this tournament. Obviously, we wanted to go all the way. We knew it was a tough tournament, and the way we played against Toronto and DC, we strongly believe that we could have beat anybody. Like I said, I think we started the game, the first half, really flat, and I felt that set the tone for the rest of the game. Like I said, we tried to push hard. In the second half, we didn't give up anything, but unfortunately it was too little, too short. But I mean, like Jukka said, it was good to be back on the pitch. It was good to be back with the guys, and I think there's a lot of learnings from this tournament on how we played, and then we take these tapes going forward for whatever's coming and waiting for us after this.
Sam Piette and Jukka Raitala there, just talking about what they can take from this tournament and into whatever the rest of the season does look like, and we're going to come to that in the next part of the show. But I think it's safe to say it was not a very happy Thierry Henry after the match, after watching that performance from his team. Rightly so. He criticised him heavily in the first game for really not showing any fire, not showing any passion, kind of desire, and it wasn't there in plentiful supplies against Orlando. It was there against TFC and they lost that one, but they got over the line against DC United to make it into the knockout round. But one of the big talking points after the game from the local Montreal media was his team's lack of attacking prowess. As I mentioned, just one shot on target they had during that whole match. The attack certainly seemed very impotent. I mean, you're talking about one of the all-time greatest strikers to have played in Europe that is in charge of this team. I mean, that is obviously going to be a surprise, but that is also clearly something that rankles Henry and not something that he agrees with. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of Henry's post-game press conference. We are going to be covering the lack of attacking threat from the side, but we're going to kick things off with my first question of the press conference, which again was just on what he can take away from this tournament after what was a disappointing final performance against Orlando. So here's Thierry Henry.
Just obviously it's a disappointing way that you've gone out of the tournament tonight, but when you look back at what's happened, you finished the tournament in the playoff places. What are your main takeaways now for whatever the rest of this MLS season is going to look like?
Well, we knew it was going to be a different game tonight because it's a knockout game. We had to beat DC obviously to carry on and to go back in the playoff spot, and that's what we did before we leave this tournament. Nobody knows what's going to happen. That's where we are right now. Like I said, we all know the circumstances. It was the same for everybody. It was always going to be tiredness, mistakes at times. But like I said, it didn't work out for us today. We were a bit better against DC defensively. Today it didn't happen.
So far your team have been outshot by the opposition in all but one game. In terms of improving this team from an attacking standpoint, is it the personnel or the system that needs to adapt perhaps?
Well, when you look at I don't know if you follow us since the beginning of the season, we score goals. Have a look. We score goals. But we also concede, so we need to find the right balance.
Did not want to comment too much on the goal and the mishap between Rod and Clement. What did you see from your vantage point? Do you think that Diop touched it? And if so, would it have been offside if he didn't?
I don't actually know. I didn't, we at the end of the tournament, yes, the goal, what it was. I've seen, unfortunately, that so many times in my career, so you don't really have to comment on what happened. It is what it is. But I'm proud of my players. I'm not trying to find any excuses. It is a fact. To stay here for a month and deal what we had to deal with and still trying to perform with phase 1, phase 2, being everybody physically, still come here and try to perform. The guys gave their all. Obviously, it's the same for everybody, don't get me wrong. But I have to look after my guys. So that's all I can say. We tried our best. We're in the playoff spot in the Eastern Conference right now. Well, yes, we do have to improve. That is for sure. But it's for only 5 games into the league. And obviously, we have games here, but it's still early for me. The process is still on. Still have to try to find the right balance defensively and offensively. But like I said to your colleague before, we do score goals. If you look at, we drew 2-2 against Dallas in the league. We scored 2 against New England back home at the beginning of the season. We lost against them 1-0. We lost 4-3 against Toronto. We won 1-0, and today we lost 1-0. So we score goals. I don't know why your one of your colleagues was saying that before. We need to find the right balance. But I just arrived here.
So not very happy, but not very pissed off, Thierry Henry, I guess you could say, after the game. But Montreal do head home, as I say, in a playoff spot now. 3 points from the group games has left them sitting 5th in the Eastern Conference standings. Orlando sitting 3rd in the Eastern Conference standings right now, just 1 point behind Toronto, with Columbus Crew leading the way there with 13 points so far from their 5 games, unbeaten on the year, as are TFC on league play. Come to them shortly as to how they got on in the knockout round on Sunday. Orlando now move on to the quarterfinals, which will take place on Friday, and they have a tough job ahead of them. They're going to be playing the winners of the Seattle Sounders LAFC game that takes place on Monday night. You obviously have to fancy the Sounders or LAFC in that one, but with the home advantage, the heat advantage that Orlando's got, and also it has to be said, the way that Oscar Pereira has turned this team around, they're playing some really nice football. They've got some dangerous pieces out there. Tell you, I would not write them off at this point of the competition. Now, the other game on Saturday night was also a 1-goal affair. Philadelphia Union getting the better of New England 1-0. Sergio Santos getting the winning goal in the 63rd minute. It's a really good finish from him as well, with a great ball as well played in by Montero to set the goal up. But it was a match where Philadelphia were very happy just to give New England the ball, and New England just weren't really able to do anything with it. New England outshot the Union 18-12, only 5 each though for both sides on target. The crucial one, of course, being Philly's goal. And New England, they seemed the better team throughout, but Andre Blake came up with some very big stops. Philly head coach Jim Curtin said after the match that he believes Blake is the best goalkeeper in MLS, and he certainly had a really good outing in this one. It was all a little bit too much though for Rev's grumpy head coach Bruce Arena after the match. Got a red card, sent off after the final whistle for abusive language towards the officials. He also skipped out of the post-game press conference, which I think technically once you are sent off, you're not allowed to attend it. That's what happened with Kyle Robinson when he got sent off at BC Place once. But you could have put your assistant up. Instead he left it for 2 players to kind of have to deal with everything after the final whistle. But it was a great win for the Union. Very hard fought. Liked what the Union have done in this competition so far. I'm just going to bring you a little bit now of the post-game audio from Philly head coach Jim Curtin.
A very professional performance from the group. Obviously, an elimination game is something that you don't get very often. You either get it in MLS playoffs or US Open Cup. So to have an extra competition, to have an elimination game is something that is important for our young players, important for our old players to experience. I thought overall we handled it very well in terms of how we defended as a team for the course of 90 minutes. Obviously, Andre made some saves again for us, which is always necessary against a good team like New England. I thought that the play, in particular, of our outside backs defensively was excellent, whether it was making a tackle or a big block or a clearance. I think sometimes we, we just expect them to be solid each and every game. So it's a time where I think I can single them out and give them a little bit of praise. The job that Ray's done all competition has been excellent. Kai as well. Center backs have been solid. The midfield's been clicking a little bit better and better as the games have gone on. We still can probably do a little bit better with our final ball and getting more goals and shot attempts, but when you look at the data, a lot more penalty area entries, so we were a little more dangerous. And overall, like I said, a professional performance from start to finish, and that's what was needed against the good New England team.
Seems like your team has gotten really comfortable playing against the ball when you have to, defending shape, all the cues. Could you talk a little about sort of the automation that you guys have worked on? It seems like the years together are starting to really show themselves.
Yeah, I think, look, it's no secret. We always start in a 4-4-2 diamond. We have an ability to wear teams down a little bit and then bring in, Ilsinho and change to a 4-2-3-1. Regardless of the formation that we're in, each opponent's different, but we have pressing cues that kind of trigger our ability to get to the ball. We're good at pressing any straight ball. That's a real cue for our guys. And we want the ball to be on certain parts of the field. And our guys did a really good job of that tonight. And then it comes down to just winning your 1v1 duels. And more times than not tonight, our guys came out of those duels with the ball at their feet. I thought Jose was, he wasn't perfect with the ball, but defensively he broke up a ton for us. Had a strong performance. Even Warren coming in late, getting his foot on a couple things to break them up. So defensively, I think our line stayed nice and compact. We try to keep it as close to 35 yards front to back from Casper, our striker, to Marc McKenzie, our center back, for the entirety of the 90 minutes. And it's proven that we're pretty tough to play through right now. And obviously it helps when you have the best goalkeeper in the league to bail you out when you need him as well. So we take pride in defense first, and our good defense usually leads to our chances offensively and our counters, and tonight was no different. Happy to get a win.
You mentioned during the broadcast that you felt at one point you were playing with a back five and a front five
Right.
with no levels to pass through. How did that come about, and how easy is that to address before the quarter final that's coming up?
Yeah, so what happened a lot in the first half was, Jose was coming deep almost into the back line, so we had a level of, 5 players rather than, our outside backs being higher, creating a level in front of their wingers. So their front 3 was able to press our 5, and then our reaction naturally from the attacking players, the 2 strikers, Brendan, Ali, and Miro, was to just run in deep and think the only option we had was a long ball. So basically we had a bunch of guys in the front line standing there with their hands up to try to get a ball in behind, and we had a line of 5 in the back and kind of nothing in the middle. Once we started to get our outside backs a little bit higher, and then Miro started to come a little bit deeper and find the ball, and then a couple times now Casper created a level and came off the strikers while Sergio still occupied both center backs. A lot of little movements started to happen in the second half that gave us a little more time and space, which, again, we weren't perfect on the night, but it got better as the second half went, and now we have to improve that now, even going further in this competition as we play, good teams every time out now.
Jim, before all this started, we talked a lot about the Open Cup as being kind of an example of a knockout competition. Being in the knockout rounds now, did it have a feel of an Open Cup game, or how did it feel differently than the group stage tonight?
Leading into it all week, we talked about it being, trying to create a playoff feel to the game. Obviously, we don't have fans here. That's no secret. But the game still had an intensity to it. The players still had a mentality that one mistake and this thing is over. So the players want to survive and advance. I think they showed that on the field. They played well. Again, are there little mistakes we can still clean up? Absolutely. But again, you only get so many opportunities to play in elimination games during the course of a season, and this is a big opportunity for us, and we want to continue to push as far as possible. The Open Cup, MLS, like I mentioned, and then the playoffs are the 2 chances, and now this is a new, unique opportunity for us to play games of consequence, and if you lose, it's over.
So a delighted and very honest Jim Curtin after the Union's win over the Revolution there. And that was a win that had the Whitecaps fans watching, because whoever won from the Sporting Kansas City Whitecaps game was going to be taking on Philly on Thursday evening. And as we know now, that team is Sporting Kansas City. And that should be a pretty good encounter on Thursday night. Hard to call a winner in it. Might just give Philly the tip of the hand, just the way that they've looked so good defensively in this tournament at times. Finished second in their group and just gave up 2 goals along the way. And that was definitely a matchup as well. I would have fancied the Whitecaps in. I thought that the Caps were in a good side of the bracket if they had only made it past KC. But not to be. So the early match on Sunday saw the other Canadian team, Toronto FC, in action against old foes NYCFC. I think heading into this one, Toronto would have been favourites in a lot of people's eyes, especially the way that NYC maybe hadn't performed to their capabilities during the tournament. But they got off to the perfect start. Jesus Medina, 5 minutes in, firing New York City into the lead. And they doubled that 10 minutes into the second half. Valentin Castellanos, with Maxi Morelos making it 3-0, 9 minutes from time. Patrick Mullins did pull one back for TFC 3 minutes before the end of the game, but it was too little too late. TFC out of the competition, and it was a pretty flat performance really from TFC in the end. Right from the start, they just didn't seem to have the energy levels. It felt like they were a team that basically knew there was no league points on the line, so they just wanted to head home. Sure, that wasn't the case, but that certainly is how it felt watching the game. After NYC took the lead, though, they came a little bit back into the match, but for the most part, you kind of felt that NYC were really in control of the game. They hit the woodwork a couple of times, had a few good chances, and it was a disappointing way for TFC to go out. All 3 Canadian teams really leaving the tournament in disappointing ways with disappointing performances to varying degrees. TFC, though, do go home with 5 points from the group games, sitting second now in the Eastern Conference standings on 9 points, 4 behind league leaders Columbus. And it sets things up nicely for whatever is to come for the MLS season. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of post-game audio now. Again, just looking at what TFC can take from the tournament and just looking a little bit ahead to the future. So we're going to hear first of all from Captain Michael Bradley and then from head coach Greg Vanney. You're going home with 5 points. It's leaving you sitting second in the East now. We saw the breakout of Ayo during the games as well. What other takeaways do you feel the team can take now to whatever the rest of the season is going to look like?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is that we picked up 5 points and we have 4 games under our belt, and obviously after a long layoff, the games are so important. Obviously everybody was training in their home market, but without any real ability to play games other than some inter squad type stuff. And so obviously when you come here and now you get 4 games, 90 minutes under your belt, that part's really, really important. And again, we'll recover from this mentally and physically, and then make sure that we're ready to continue to push things in training over this next stretch so that we're ready for whatever comes next.
Yeah, I take back. I'm pleased that again we took at least 5 points out of it. It keeps us right there towards the top of the Eastern Conference. 15 games unbeaten in regular season play. I'll take that. We're going to continue to try to build off of that when we get back to play. We're getting guys towards fitness. This is, essentially in terms of fitness, is a preseason tournament. So we're getting guys towards fitness. We're getting, guys who are not super healthy. We're starting to get them more healthy. We have a guy like Ayo who has a breakout tournament, and he shows that he's going to be a viable part of our team this year and can play in this league and score goals in this league, which is nice. We see some more young guys. So it's a tournament this beginning of the year. Of course, we wanted to win it, but it's also about information and it's about growing as a group. And it's sometimes it's about being humbled and seeing where you still need to get better. That's part of the process that every season is about. And we'll try to grow and get better out of this. That's going to be our intention, and that is our expectation, and we will, because we will take a look and we'll continue to improve.
Greg, understanding that this is post-game, maybe not the best time to ask, but we also don't know when we'll get to speak to you next. Do you have an idea what comes next for your team as a Canadian team, and how do you plan with that kind of uncertainty in terms of what the rest of the season will look like?
I don't know exactly what things will look like. It sounds like the league will kick off again sometime in the middle part of August. I assume and believe that will include us. What does that exactly mean for the Canadian teams? I'm not 100% sure yet. I think that's still a little bit of work in progress, but something will get worked out. We know we're going to probably have to adapt given the circumstances. We'll figure out what that looks like. What we're going to do is we'll go back, we'll recover, get our legs back under us, and then we'll start to prepare for whatever this regular season will ultimately look like. But we have a rough estimate that it's going to be the middle of August, so we'll start to prepare ourselves for that. Who our opponents will be, we don't know right away, but again, we'll figure that out as we get there.
Michael Bradley and Greg Vanney there, just talking about what they can take for the tournament and an eye to the future as to what that might hold in store. No one really knows for definite what is going to be left of the MLS season. There was the report that came out on Friday from The Athletic saying that the league looks to get back underway with more matches in about 4 weeks' time. Huge implications for the 3 Canadian teams in that regard as well. And we're going to get rejoined by Steve and Zach to chat about that after this.
Hi, I'm Andy O'Brien, and you're listening to the AFTN radio show.
A distant echo of faraway voices boarding faraway trains to take them home to the ones that they love and who love them forever. The glazed dirty steps repeat my own and reflect my thoughts. Cold and uninviting, partially naked except for toffee wrappers and this morning's papers. Mr. Jones got run down, headlines of death, and so they tell on tomorrow. Madmen on the rampage, and I'm down in the tube station at midnight.
Welcome back to the final part of tonight's AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this final part, it's our final 3 of a kind song, our final song this month from Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. Honestly, it is the last song we're going to play from them this month. Taken from their 1992 single, Do Re Mi, So Far So Good, which was another song that we played on the show a couple of weeks back. That was a cover of my all-time favourite song by The Jam, Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. Another very different version to the original there. In this case, I do prefer the original. As I said, it's my all-time favourite song by The Jam, who are also one of my all-time favourite bands. Anybody that knows their work will know, because AFTN, Away From the Numbers, is named after a Jam B-side. I remember buying the 7-inch single for Down in the Tube Station at Midnight, and I still have it to this very day. So I hope you've enjoyed all the songs from Carter this week, this month. If you want to check them out, check out their albums. There's a lot to choose from. The solo stuff as well from Jim Bob, who's got a new album coming out in August. And also from Fruit Bat, Les Carter, the original Unstoppable Sex Machine. He has a band called Abdu Japarov, so you can check them out as well. The first 4 albums by Carter are all excellent recommendos, or if you want to just start off with their singles collection, Straw Donkey, go with that. But enough of the music chat, let's get back to the football, and I'm going to bring Steve and Zach back at this part, because we want to talk about some news that broke late on Friday from The Athletic. It's all about the future plans for the remainder of this season for Major League Soccer. We touched on it at the end of our Chicago Whitecaps post-game show on YouTube on Thursday. I thought it was just some weird rumour that I had been told, but turns out no. The plan is to bring MLS back as early as the 2nd or 3rd week of August and have the Canadian teams playing each other in Canada if they're not able to get over the border, which they are not going to be able to do. That would be in phase 2 of the return plans. There's also a phase 3. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it now. So, according to the tentative plan that is in place, the regular season is set to resume on August 22nd, so less than a month away, and also less than 2 weeks after the final of MLS is back, which is on August 11th. It's going to be in a couple of different phases. Phase 1 is from August 22nd to September the 13th, with teams playing 6 games in that period. Now, for the Canadian teams, you've got the problem like the border is going to be closed till August 21st. I would see it extended. I could actually see the border closed for the whole year, to be honest. I genuinely don't see them reopening it anytime soon unless cases in the States get way down. Now, what that means for Montreal, Toronto and the Whitecaps is unless they get a special exemption, they can't leave the country without having to go back and quarantine for 14 days. The Whitecaps, TFC and the Impact just now, heading home from Orlando, all 3 teams, they now have to quarantine away from their families even longer, away from everything for 2 weeks after getting back. They knew that was the case, but that is what the case is going to be. So, the initial plan for phase 1, and we'll just look at each phase individually just now, is that the 3 Canadian teams would remain in Canada and only play against each other during that phase. We talked about it at the end of Thursday's show. You were like, no. I thought it was just a rumour and it was made up, but nope. The murmurs that I was told were true by the looks of it. And it's going to be 6 games between all the Canadian teams. It's going to be 3 home, 3 away, which means the Whitecaps are going to have to head east 3 times, and only one of the eastern teams is going to have to head west twice, and the other one's only going to head west once. So already not a fair schedule. Thoughts on it all?
I guess it's something that has to be done at this point. Like I said, I'm not confident at all this season is going to end anyways, like even for America, unless they're just going to ignore all the uptick in infections and stuff like that. So if they're going to ignore that, then they might get it done. But right now, if this was another country, they would have shut all the leagues down at this point. If it was any other country in the world, if they had this many infections, there would be no leagues going on at all. And everybody
not Belarus, because vodka and saunas kill everything in Belarus.
Yeah.
Sluts are still crap, by the way.
But yeah, I like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, they could play this first phase probably pretty easy. But once they open up that phase 3, I don't think the border's going to open. I totally agree with you that I think the Canadian teams are just going to be left out to dry, or they make preparations where they relocate to America and they play out of a certain location or something.
Well, yeah.
Maybe
we'll come to that in a sec. So, Zach, what do you feel about the Canadian teams just playing each other in a non-stop round robin? Or at least 6 games to start with.
6 games each, so you're playing 3 times against each team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound ideal, but I guess we're not living in ideal times. So,
no.
Yeah. Would you assume this would take place at some place like BC Place? Or
yeah, it's meant to be in their home stadiums, which is problematic then for TFC because you've got the NHL bubble that is set up on Exhibition Park, I think it's called. So BMO's on the same place, so that would be them in the bubble there. So I don't know how that works. Or it doesn't really matter, I guess, because there's no fans in attendance. They could play it anywhere in Toronto. Could play it in Hamilton.
I think if they do testing every day or something like that, and they get cleared, then they might be able to get cleared to go into that bubble just to enter into that stadium. So that might work fine as long as they go in and go out right away. So I think that I don't see how they can have attendance in there, and I don't think that's going to happen for sure, especially in Canada. I think American teams will try that for sure.
Yeah, phase 2.
Right?
Sorry, Zach.
USL is doing attendance, right?
Yeah, USL are. Although, touching on that, Alan Koch's Colorado Springs Switchbacks game against Austin Bold on today, Sunday, was called off because the opposition had tested positive.
How many? A lot of players, or
all of them? Can't remember, but it's like
for a significant amount.
Yeah, enough to get a game called off while they were doing more testing.
Wait, what is that number? Because we still don't know what it is for MLS.
So, phase 2 of MLS's return plan, they want to have 12 games from September 16th to November 8th. So you'd be having a 23-game regular season, which would be 2 from before everything shut down, the 3 group games from Orlando, and then you'd have these 18 games after the MLS is Back tournament. And it would be played, these 18 games would be played over about an 11-week plan. Now, the tentative plan is also looking at the possibility, and apparently TFC are already moving ahead with this idea, that they will have to shift operations to the US at some point this fall. Now, I think, first of all, that is frankly unacceptable to ask players to relocate for 2-3 months away from their family to another country. I know the Blue Jays are doing it. You look at the Blue Jays, how many of those players are Canadian? Not a lot. They've probably got family in the States anyway, so it's fine for them being based in the States. We've got a lot of Canadian and foreign players here. If their wives can't come down with them to the States, you've got wives here that don't speak English. They've already been left alone for this tournament. You cannot expect people to be away from their families and go to the States, where things are out of hand in a lot of places just now, for 2 to 3 months. If it were to happen, we're going to be in another situation where a lot of our guys are going to decide, I'm not going down, and then we're screwed.
Not only that, the Blue Jays are one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball, so I don't think very many are even have they obviously have extended families, but their own wives and kids, and there are very few that have them. So that probably doesn't make a difference to them. Totally agree with you that it does make it harder. Some obviously families will be able to relocate because they are American. But for example, if you look at Vancouver as an example, there's maybe 2 or 3 that are I think there's only 3 Americans that were the people that live in America full time. So that's only 3 families, and the rest are, like you said, foreign or Canadian. So it does make a huge difference for them and to see if they could relocate.
So the Walkers asked about this in the comments, Michael. If we are going to have to relocate to the States to play some of the games, will we still be missing half the squad?
Definitely.
I think you'll get the Colombian will play if they're actually if they're out of Washington State. Then his wife's family will presumably get to maybe be by her family.
That's true, because she's American, so she could go down. Yeah,
but
I think the only player that might be taken out would be, because the only player that was forced out, it was Toussaint Ricketts, wasn't it? Or
I can see Luka not going though. Just
he's already said no. Why would he? I mean, if it's in Washington, northwestern Washington State, maybe that's okay.
But you're playing away games as well, remember? So you're going all over the country.
That's true.
But the thing is with Luka, I think his thing was that they had a family member that just passed away very recently, so they weren't maybe they weren't emotionally ready to go down there. I don't know. I'm just spitballing there, so I don't know if that's true or not. But that could be, maybe he's ready to go down because by end of August or September, even if maybe his family will be settled in by then, and he'll be able to travel, because obviously this is not going to happen until September, the second and third phase, so that should be fine.
I'll play a little bit now on the podcast of what Marc DeSantis said when I asked him about what the next month looks like for the Whitecaps after this tournament. And interesting comments from Marc. The future, no one really knows exactly what's happening right now, but the plan seems to be that things could restart towards the end of August. What does the next month look like for you guys now?
No, let's go 2 weeks at a time, because we live in a world that is very inconsistent. We live in a world where some people don't get it, that you have to stay inside and you have to stay home and just wear a mask. I think the humanity has to wake up. This is something serious. And we don't know what's next. We don't know what's next. What we know for the Whitecaps and for our group is when we go back home, we have to stay 2 weeks quarantined and stay between us and go from there and respect what the health authorities are gonna have to say. And I hope all the cities in our league just man, do your job, stay home, do your job. It's the only way this is gonna stop. So that's what's next for us. What's next for us is 2 weeks of quarantine home, staying together, and then we'll see one day at a time. Michael, it's tough. Sorry for me. It's tough for me to tell you what's next. I don't know.
So basically, MDS is pleading America to get their shit in order and to stay indoors and to wear masks and to drive the virus down. Otherwise, to me, it sounded like he was all for not going ahead with this. And you know what? See if the Whitecaps said, okay, we'll play our games in Canada against Canadian teams, but we're not relocating to the US. If that's the only way we can play, we're not doing it. We're not completing the season. They have my backing 100%. I would not have any qualms about them pulling out at all. I just don't think that any Canadian team should be asked to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I know again we're in kind of extreme times, and that means some of us have to take extreme measures for different things. But yeah, it feels crazy that they're going to have to do this for this period of time. And we do know other sports leaguers are doing that, but they don't have the international. I mean, they have far less international players, I think, in most of those leagues, at least from my limited perception of them. I could see the Whitecaps missing some players for sure. Maybe not as many. Like I'm pretty sure Andy Rose would be there, unless maybe the health thing is too big of a concern. But we hope to St. Ricketts they'll be able to allow him to move forward.
I know that is a worrying one because it's like we obviously don't know what the health condition was that stopped him travelling. Just a couple of other things from the Athletic article. Nashville and Dallas, because they missed the MLS's back tournament, they have to play each other in an additional 3 games to make up for their lack of participation in the group stages. Also, Nashville are going to be moving to the Eastern Conference for the rest of 2020. And it's actually 18 teams that's going to make the playoffs, 9 from each conference. I missed that when I read it earlier. Just let everyone in. It's like I said before this tournament started, if 16 of the 26 teams are going to make it to the knockoff round, you've got to be pretty shit not to make it. Whitecaps made it, so obviously we're good. But if you've got 18 of the 26 teams now making it to the playoffs, aye.
I think that's more that they want to make sure that nobody can complain that it was unfair, that, they want to take the unfairness out of the whole thing about it being a short season. It was unfair that we missed the playoffs. So I think they're just trying to get it. And also, I think they realized last year with all the excitement over the knockout, the single game knockout, that was exciting for fans and people tuned in. So I think that's the reason why they probably want to take advantage of that in this kind of season that where it's short anyways.
Talking of fans, state and local government guidelines will be used to determine whether fans can attend matches. MLS will allow teams to host fans in stadiums if local guidelines permit them to do so. We know that the USL are doing that in a few places, but not all. So because of that, it's been reported that DC United are exploring hosting games at 2 venues outside of Washington so they can have fans there. And New York City FC can't use Yankee Stadium probably because of the baseball. But then you're talking about level playing fields and fairness. You're going to have some teams that are going to be playing with fans and having maybe a home advantage with fans there. and some teams not playing with fans. So it's not a level playing field. And I don't know if I would not think in BC we'll have fans at BC Place, because it sounds like 50 is still the limit for large gatherings and things like that. So unless you're just letting 50 fans in.
Yeah, no, that's still too high for me personally. But 50 fans at BC Place might be okay because you're so spread out. I don't know if that's like you're going to have one person in each section. Obviously, that wouldn't make a difference for FC Dallas, but everybody else probably would make a huge difference on how it looks.
It'd be like the Cavalry FC game last year.
We talk about fair and balanced. I mean, the league hasn't had a fair and balanced schedule since, I think, 2011 or 2012 or something ridiculous. We've always talked about how, the supporter shield is a bit tainted in that, teams are not playing the same number of teams, same number of times and all that. And this year, again, it's an exceptional year, but it is farcical.
There's a lot of this that's farcical. But that is it, I think, for tonight's show. Before we wrap up, obviously the 3 Canadian teams are out. There's still an amazing 14, 15 days of this tournament left. Obviously not games every day, but it goes on to August 11th. Do you think your interest will remain in watching the rest of it? I've watched every game, either live or fast-forwarding the early morning games. I was talking to our good friend Greg Petrie today, and I was saying, I'm watching games, like last night's Philly-New England game. If that was a regular season game or even a playoff game, I wouldn't have watched that live. But because it's a knockout and it's the tournament, I found myself watching it. So I've been watching games I wouldn't normally have watched. As you know, I've been jumping on all these conference calls and just chatting to as many different players and coaches as I can to get stuff for the shows. I've enjoyed doing that. I think I'll still have a good interest in it. But will you guys?
I've missed quite a few, especially the early stages. I missed quite a few because I completely forgot the games were on. I wasn't used to the games being on, whether early in the morning or late. I think if I know the games are on, I'll probably have it on in the background, but nothing where I'm like sitting down and actually watching the game.
Yeah, I mean, it'll help that they're knockout games, but yeah, I mean, it depends on how much you want to talk about them, Michael.
Well,
are we going to get there next Sunday to talk about what's happened last week, or?
I don't think we'll be doing any more live YouTube shows for a while. So, I mean,
that's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, the Whitecaps are quarantined now for 2 weeks, so there's definitely no Whitecap stuff to talk about probably for the next 2 weeks unless anyone breaks the quarantine.
Maybe they could pop on our show if they're doing nothing anyways.
Yeah.
Live, yeah. Oh, Michael, let's get these some great interviews now.
I toyed with possibly doing a live watch along for the final, depending on who's in the final.
I'll do that if you want it. If you want to do it, no problem. I'll jump on then. But I'm not gonna. I don't know if I could pay attention to these games. They're kind of not that exciting.
Orbital says we should talk about NHL or CFL.
I could just do my East Fife podcast and just put that out in CITR instead.
I know you. This just actually came out a couple of hours ago. I thought I'd just discuss it with you guys really quickly. It was on The Athletic. Apparently, players are going to be suing for hundreds of millions of dollars over their statistic. Like in the English Football League, Scottish Football League, other national leagues, they're going to be the tracking data. They're going to be suing for millions of pounds because it's more than 400 current and former players. So I recommend everybody check that out. It's going to be interesting to see if that happens or not. I just perused the article. I sent it to you guys in the WhatsApp through WhatsApp.
I saw it there.
My phone's charging.
Are they suing the league, Steve?
I think so, or whoever does the tracking. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but
they're giving that data to betting companies.
Betting companies or other teams that might have affected their future salaries and stuff like that, because they might not get the salary if it shows their stats. Their the Moneyball stats or whatever aren't very good on them, so it might affect their salaries in the future too. That's what it sounded like to me. I haven't read the whole thing, like I said.
Surely there must be something in their contracts about this kind of thing. You would think. Maybe there wasn't, or there's not.
They said it's going to be a precedent-setting lawsuit, so we'll see what happens here. It'd be interesting to see if this also comes to MLS as well.
Anyway, interesting times, and let's see what the future brings. It could be a very interesting end to the year, MLS-wise. CPL, we're still waiting for news on that as well. So just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
For me, it's at Zachary AM.
I'm Michael McCaw. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. On YouTube, well, you're already watching it, but if you're listening to this on the podcast, give us a subscribe on YouTube. Turn on notifications so you know whenever we do any of these live things. And on Instagram at AFTN Soccer. Thank you for listening, everybody. Take care. Stay safe. If the Whitecaps players are listening to this, enjoy your quarantine. We're always available to chat. Jump on. It'll be fun. And until we meet again, thanks for listening. And mon the Caps!
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.